Republicans have been telling us for quite some time that the Democratic Party is weaponizing the government for their political benefit, and President Joe Biden is doing the same. And now, Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz is proudly promoting an idea to weaponize the authority of Congress to try to defend the dear leader, Donald Trump, through the usage of congressional immunity. Really strange, wild idea. And an example of both that contradiction and just the lengths to which these individuals will go, Republicans will go to defend Donald Trump. So this is from Newsweek. Then we'll look at a bit from an interview. Matt Gaetz outlines possible Trump immunity plan. Republican Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida argued on Tuesday that House Republicans could pursue legal immunity for former President Donald Trump. I'll dive into the specifics of congressional immunity, why this seems very much not within the authority that Congress has, at least as Matt Gaetz breaks it down. But first, here's a little bit from this interview.
You can actually bring President Trump in to give testimony to the Congress, and in doing so, immunize him. Now, there's different forms of immunity that take place at the committee level, subcommittee level. In some instances, for full immunity, you have to have more of a supermajority vote. But if you had a supermajority vote of a committee, like Speaker McCarthy could set up a select committee tomorrow that could bring Trump in and immunize him. And then we could proceed with the very legitimate investigative work that we're doing of the Bidens and the corrupt DOJ.
Sure.
So unfortunately, none of those things are happening. Instead, Congress is not in Washington, not assembled. And I think the timing is on purpose. No timing in D.C. is ever just, a mere coincidence. And so right as Congress is leaving town, right as we're walking away from our equities, you see this acceleration of activity against Trump.
So yeah, let's be.
Before watching the follow-up question, and we will watch how it proceeds, but first, on congressional immunity, and some of you may be really well versed on this, and of course, what I had pulled up here is now not loading, unfortunately. There we go. From CBS, what is congressional immunity? You may never have heard of it. That's because in recent years, it's rarely granted, but Congress has long had the power to protect witnesses from being prosecuted for what they're compelled to say under oath. Frustrated by witnesses who refuse to testify, taking the fifth before the House Un-American Activities Committee, Congress in the 1950s granted itself the power to force a witness to answer questions even after they've said they won't. So because we are protected by the Fifth Amendment from self-incrimination, it was getting annoying to Congress, I guess, to have people just plead the fifth, plead the fifth, plead the fifth, which they have the right to do. So they came up with this ability that they could have where they can force you to answer, but then if you say something that incriminates you yourself, you can't be prosecuted for it. If the full House or Senate or 2/3 of a congressional committee vote to issue a subpoena to a witness who refuses to testify, a federal court will order that person to appear and answer questions, and the answers cannot be used against them in any criminal proceeding. And that's where this falls apart in my mind. And always, I will say, I'm not a lawyer, so I could be reading this incorrectly, but if Matt Gaetz is trying to, as he's promoting this idea to be doing, if he's trying to protect Trump from prosecution across the board, but granting him immunity within Congress for his testimony, then yeah, he won't be able to self-incriminate himself as he's talking. He can't, in that moment, say things that then he could be prosecuted for, but he could continue being prosecuted for what he's already being prosecuted for, but continuing.
Be specific here, though. So immunize him from what crimes, even if he's under current indictment? Is that including even the obstruction claims? And give us some examples of how this has been used recently.
Well, it hasn't been used recently, but obviously we're aware of the ability for any person to plead the fifth. You can dissolve someone's ability to plead the fifth if you immunize them. And so Congress has this ability that's been recognized. It's even laid out in 18 U.S.C.A. 6002 and 6005. If folks want to look it up. But there you've got the ability to say, well, we're hereby compelling your testimony we're giving you immunity for anything you say to us and anything that would lead to. And so, for example, if President Trump came in and said, I'm here to give you testimony about the witch hunt, the abuse of criminal process that Congress has legitimate oversight equities to resolve, and if he were to say things to us, we could immunize him for that conduct that he were to discuss.
For that conduct that he were to discuss. So not just the discussion, and in the discussion he can't incriminate himself, but the conduct that is the topic of the discussion, he also would get immunity for. Seems way outside of the power that Congress has there. Again, lawyers, feel free to weigh in, but sounds rather ridiculous for sure, and based on my reading of congressional immunity, it indeed is. Gaetz explained his latest plan as Truth Out reports this week while discussing Trump's most recent indictments, and says the plan would require the House to establish a select committee. McCarthy cannot do so on his own. He needs a majority vote in the House, which would require nearly every Republican in the chamber to cooperate with the scheme, given the GOP's extremely narrow majority. The plan would also likely be challenged in courts by the DOJ, which may argue against the legality of granting Trump immunity in a way that is so transparently corrupt. And then also in this same interview, Gaetz said, quote, the downside of bringing anyone before Congress to give testimony is that if you say something that is material and that is not accurate, that can create a cascade of follow-on charges, meaning Trump could perjure himself, which indeed is probably not the best idea in an effort to defend someone, to put them in a situation when they're notorious for having a very horrible relationship with the truth, where they have to tell the truth. That might end poorly for Donald Trump. Let me know what you think of all of this. You can find me on YouTube at Luke Beasley and on Twitter or X, Luke P. Beasley. We'll be right back.
Something that's been in the news a lot lately is data brokers collecting vast amounts of data about everything you do on your phone and computer, where you go, what you look at. They identify patterns in your behavior, and it's really quite disturbing how much data brokers know about us, even our health information. And then we found out that sometimes government agencies like the FBI will buy that information from data brokers to spy on Americans without warrants. Ad companies buy the data to serve you ads. Financial institutions can use the information. The information can even end up on public search sites where anybody can see it, but there is a way to stop it. Our sponsor, Incogni, is an affordable service that sends automatic data removal requests to data brokers who are required by law to comply. Incogni even follows up with the data brokers to ensure your data is permanently gone, and Incogni keeps you updated every step of the way. I use Incogni myself. It is remarkable what they will accomplish for you, and my audience gets 60% off. Go to incogni.com/Pacman and use the code Pacman. The link is down below.